Star Wars The Last Jedi was not that great of a film, but one of the things I really enjoyed was how they handled Luke Skywalker. Before seeing it, I remember reading about people saying they ruined his character. Once I saw the film, I understood why, but I ended up finding this new interpretation of his character interesting. I also realized that they had essentially made him undergo the same transformation that Solid Snake had gone through in Metal Gear Solid 4 years ago in 2008. And therein came the idea to make this video. However, before we proceed, and I think this goes without saying, there will be a massive amount of spoilers related to the Star Wars saga and the Metal Gear saga, so this is your spoiler warning. Without further ado, let's begin. The last time we saw Luke Skywalker, excluding his brief cameo in Force Awakens, he was on top of the world. He and his band of rebels had just vanquished the Empire, and Luke was partying it up with the Ewoks. He even had a little moment that saw his father join Obi-Wan and Yoda in the afterlife. He was filled with hope. Then we find out through Force Awakens that he apparently fled to a far-off planet and didn't want to be found at all, having failed the son of Han and Leia. Rey tracks Luke down to a virtually uninhabited planet and offers him his lightsaber. And here's where things pick up in The Last Jedi. Switching gears to Metal Gear, Solid Snake was in a seemingly hopeful scenario as well the last time we saw him in Metal Gear Solid 2. He and Raiden had stopped Solidus' threat, and Snake even gave Raiden tons of optimistic advice, including, "Find something to believe in, and find it for yourself. When you do, pass it on to the future." Definitely sounds like something a man who has his stuff together would say. Otacon calls him up later on and lets him know that they are now supposedly one step closer to finding the Patriots, the shadowy organization that controls the fate of the world in the background. And now let's fast forward in both these series. In Star Wars, Rey delivers Luke's original lightsaber that he lost when he faced Vader all those years ago, and he promptly chucks it. He literally doesn't give a flying poodoo about it and just asks her to leave as he goes on to drink that sweet, sweet green alien milk. As a matter of fact, it takes a long time for Rey to persuade Luke to finally train her, and when he does, he isn't exactly jumping for joy about it, constantly thinking about his failure with Ben, and reluctantly showing her a couple things about the way of the Jedi. At one point, he remarks how the Jedi Order let the Sith steal the Republic from under their noses because of their hubris, and once again insists on how he failed Ben Kenobi and doesn't want to fail her. When he speaks to Yoda, he flat out tells him, "I was weak, unwise," and further elaborates that he can't be what she needs him to be. And what is exactly what she needs him to be? She needs him to be the legendary Luke Skywalker, the one man who defied an empire and almost single-handedly brought it down. As a matter of fact, in a deleted scene after Luke bamboozles Rey into thinking that the local townspeople were being raided, when in fact they were having an awesome party, she doesn't take it as a lesson and tells him, "That old legend that you hate so much, I believed in it." And just to drive in her disappointment, adds, "I was wrong." Luke doesn't want to be that legend. Luke wants to be as far away as possible, literally and metaphorically, from that legend. Over on Solid Snake's side, we also find a much older and weaker Snake from the last time we saw him. He has aged considerably in only a few years, and looks decades older than he really is. His strength is leaving him, as well as his will to live, and he finds himself reluctantly being pulled into one last mission to rid the world of Liquid Snake, a man who has assumed the identity of his dead brother and has become far too dangerous with the amount of power he has in the war economy. Snake puts himself in his latest sneaking suit, which doubles as a muscle suit, and takes off on his mission. However, he's in a great deal of pain as his joints are giving out, he needs to continually pat his lower back, he's been genetically programmed to rapidly age and die, and he suffers from severe coughing fits that can only be controlled by a steady stream of nanomachines. And to top it all off, in a few short months, he will become a walking biological weapon, indiscriminately killing those around him by just being near them. In short, he's a complete wreck, and thinks very little of himself. Meryl, his one-time romantic interest, keeps reminding him of his past, referring to him as a certain legendary hero who disappeared. She even tells her team that they have a real-life legend with them. Despite his incessant claims to the contrary, she reminds him that he is still a legend, a hero, and she knows all about the things he did when he was young. But Snake is not having it. He states, "I'm no hero. Never was. Never will be." And later on adds, "I'm just an old killer, hired to do some wet work." So far, we have extremely similar circumstances with our heroes. Two former living legends that have grown to be increasingly jaded and cynical, and now deny and downright disbelieve their heroic past. Snake doesn't even consider saving the world from a nuclear catastrophe multiple times heroic, while Luke can only focus on his failures in life, not on his accomplishments, such as bringing down a tyrannical empire. Both were left in states of hope for a new world, a new way of life. But when we find them again, they are bitter and distant to themselves and to those around them. They are constantly being reminded of the amazing legend that they used to be by the women in their life. Snake is reminded by Meryl, while Luke is reminded by Rey. Even in the same way, they disappoint them, Merrill becomes increasingly hostile towards him, and Rey grows increasingly impatient and hostile towards Luke as well. Snake and Luke both decide to hide from the world, Luke quite literally from the universe, and Snake from Merrill, as she noted that he disappeared on her. But these two old, jaded, cynical heroes continue to trudge on, and eventually do accept their calling. Before moving on, if you liked the video so far, be sure to subscribe to my channel, as there are plenty of other analytical and theory videos on the way. And if you check the playlist in the description below, you can see the others I've already made as well, including in-depth reviews on Justice League and Avengers Infinity War, as well as theory videos such as analyzing what would have happened if Captain America had killed Iron Man in Civil War. Returning to Star Wars and Metal Gear, in The Last Jedi, Luke seemingly abandons the cause, but at the last possible moment, uses up every last bit of power he had lounging about within him and manifests himself as an Ultra HD 4K Force Ghost that effectively dupes Kylo Ren into thinking he's actually there. And due to his noble sacrifice, the last of the Resistance members are able to escape with the distraction. In the case of Solid Snake, or Old Snake as many take to calling him in the game, he boards Outer Haven and is determined to walk through a hallway full of microwaves in order to upload a virus to disable the AI that had so far been controlling the US and pretty much the entire world up to that point. He is literally cooking himself alive in there, but he does it because he knows he has to. As he had remarked to Raiden earlier, "It's not about winning or losing. We started it, and it's our duty to finish it." And he, as Revolver Ocelot puts it, settles the score with Ocelot in an extended, awesome fight. So in both cases, the old, jaded, tired, cynical heroes come through. They put their own thoughts aside and did what was best for the greater good. Luke sacrificed himself for it, and Snake put himself through a great deal of physical and emotional pain for it. But they both ended up being better people than they were at the beginning of the story. They both found redemption in themselves and with their fathers. As a matter of fact, Luke and Snake have an extremely similar relationship to their fathers. Anakin Skywalker was a legendary Jedi, an incredible pilot. He fought and survived several battles during the Clone Wars and was set to become the most amazing Jedi ever. But then he was slowly corrupted into a much darker version of himself by Palpatine. The Senator preyed upon his fear and insecurities and promised him that he, and he alone, could save Padme. Anakin is thus converted to the dark side and becomes Palpatine's apprentice. He is defeated by Obi-Wan in battle, and Palpatine encases him in a mechanical suit that allows him to breathe and walk. For many years, he reigns alongside the Emperor as Darth Vader, a man who strikes fear and intimidation to all those around him. But that small shred of good is always left inside of him, and Luke, his son, manages to bring it out of him. Luke Skywalker fights Vader, but right before he kills him, he spares him and manages to bring the light side out of Vader. Vader overthrows the Emperor, quite literally, and Luke is left kneeling beside him as he drifts away. Meanwhile, with Metal Gear, Naked Snake, or John, was a legendary soldier. He was trained under the extremely experienced soldier, the Boss, who was also known as the Mother of Special Forces. Unfortunately, Snake was forced to assassinate her in order to prove the innocence of the United States, and so begins his deep descent into villainy. It started out innocently enough, just a man building his own army to carry out missions for those who had no army, but it quickly became much, much more. He became obsessed with the idea of the Boss, and why she would, as he put it, put down her gun, and eventually decided that he would never be like her. He would never put down his gun. So he turns even darker and eventually forms his twisted dream of Outer Heaven, a place where soldiers and mercenaries like him will always have a place in the world. Solid Snake, his clone, and in many ways as close as possible to his genetic son, defeats him and his band of mercenaries twice on the battlefield, once in Outer Heaven and the next in Zanzibar land, saving the world in the process. Several years later, Big Boss stands beside Snake at a graveyard, his body having been preserved by nanomachines. He laments on his past actions, remarks on how he hopes Solid Snake wouldn't have made the same decisions he did, and quietly accepts his fate to die beside his son due to the Fox Die virus, imploring his son to live his life peacefully. So in other words, in both situations, we have legendary heroes who were turned into horrific villains due to their own decisions. Anakin trusted Palpatine, and John was simply undone by his decision to kill the Boss, and it wrecked his mind in an irreversible way. Both fathers also dueled with their sons twice as well. Lastly, both found redemption with the help of their sons. Darth Vader was quite literally turned back into Anakin due to Luke's reassuring words. Due to Solid Snake's actions, Big Boss acknowledged that the war against the Patriots was finally over and accepted his fate to pass on, while urging his son to move on from the battlefield. In the end, despite their terrible deeds, both men found redemption in their final moments alongside their sons. Returning to Luke and Snake, I think it's interesting to look into the old hero archetype. It's something that has popped up pretty frequently recently. Besides Snake and Luke, we also got Han Solo in his last hurrah during Force Awakens, or even Wolverine appearing as the old, ragged, jaded, barely healing Logan in his self-titled film. So what can we learn from our old heroes? Why even make them old in the first place? So many possible explanations exist. one of which is hinted at by Green Goblin in the first Spider-Man film. He suggests the one thing that people love more than a hero is to see a hero fall, fail, die trying. And in a sense, that is how we see our heroes in their old form. A hero past their prime, a hero who has nothing to live for, a hero who merely exists as a shadow of his former self. In other words, they already are a failure, and us, as the audience, just eat it up. Another reason is that it combines elements of an underdog tale, as well as a tale of redemption. It's difficult to root for a hero who you know is just so unbelievably awesome in every way, i.e. Superman, so an easy way to create conflict and more tension is to turn it into an underdog tale. Make him outmatched and in over his head, and if you don't want to create stronger enemies, make him weaker, make him older, make him cynical. This leads us into a tale of redemption. By making our heroes so different from how they were when we last saw them, we give them a place to go. We effectively give them a good old character arc. They change throughout the film, the book, the game, whatever medium it is. They may not pull a full 180, but they will come out the other side a changed hero, a better person. It also plays with the audience expectations as well. Here they are, expecting their hero to be the same person they were last time, even if they do look a little different, but they aren't. Time hasn't just changed what they look like, but who they are as well. It's also a humbling lesson in that even our heroes can't live on forever. It places more value on their accomplishments knowing that their lives aren't infinite. They too bleed and die just like us. It's a painful trope, but a somewhat necessary one. It makes us appreciate them that much more. It makes us remember them. What do you think of the old hero archetype? What do you think of Luke and Snake? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe for more awesome content, and see you next time.